I'm Conrad Tribble. I am the Chargé d'Affaires. It's the fancy term for the guy in charge of the U.S. Embassy here, and I just want to welcome you. An extra special welcome from us to something slightly different. Yes, this is still South Summit. The party is still happening fairly soon, but we have within South Summit a little conference that we call InCubed, that this is the first inaugural event for, this little speech, this little keynote speech. Our regular program will be tomorrow afternoon. I hope you can see some of you there. We've had a lot of good sponsors, Wayda, Spain Startup, Chambéry Valley, Endeavor, and Spain Startup. So we really appreciate them. But what I'm here for to do today really is just to talk about the guy who's coming up to speak. We do a lot of work trying to put Spanish entrepreneurs together with American entrepreneurs, startups, and every other sector. Charlie Candy is the Chief Revenue Officer at Planet, which I have been learning about the last hour or so. It's a really fascinating company that started out based in California that works in satellite imagery and does a lot of interesting and fun stuff with satellite imagery. And he's going to talk about the trajectory of the company, what it's been doing, how it's succeeded, what its challenges are. Don't be confused by the British accent. We are a very diverse United States. We have a lot of people from a lot of countries, so this is an American company that you're going to hear from. So, Charlie Candy, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So, yes, he's already taken my British accent gag. So, I'm here representing a US company, Planet. So, before I start, how many people know who Planet is, who have heard of Planet before? Okay, a few, well, apart from the people I briefed earlier. I'm today just going to give you a little bit of a insight into the story behind Planet, and there's really three things that I want to cover. The first is just our journey. You know, we were a startup and kind of where we are and the distance we've traveled and where we are now and what the future looks like. The second is I want to talk about our relevance to other companies, other startups, because we do a lot of work with them. And the third is just to talk about our role within sustainability, which is very significant. So I will say I'm the Chief Revenue Officer, so I'm not a rocket scientist. There are a lot of people in the company that are a lot smarter than me that did amazing things, and I'm really just here to tell you about some of the amazing things that they've done. I think we'll have some slides kind of go through as we're talking, hopefully that will help illustrate some of the things I'm talking about. So for those that don't know Planet, so Planet has the largest fleet of Earth observation satellites, over 200 in space today. And we image the entire landmass of the Earth every single day. And we make that data available to governments, NGOs, commercial organizations to create insights and make decisions. But our mission as a company was to help life on Earth through space. And I'm going to go back to where this story began with our founders who they're physicists working at NASA, and they had this incredible vision for how Earth observation could be different, but also frustration through some of the very big, complex, expensive projects that they worked on that took a long, long time to come to fruition. And they really came up with Agile Aerospace, and they have completely disrupted and innovated in the industry. So their thesis was that you could put commercial-grade electronic components in space, and they would survive. And a lot of people thought that wouldn't be feasible. Space is a very hostile environment. You have very big extremes of temperature. You've got all of the vibration and forces impacted on anything you put up into space. And then you also have radiation as well. So it's a pretty hostile environment. It's also very expensive to put things in space. So anything you put into space, you need to be absolutely sure that it doesn't fail. And that's why Earth observation satellites still being produced today, but also of the past, cost hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And our whole company was founded and got to this point on less than the cost of just some of those satellites. So the story is really about how the founders bootstrapped, and through this frustration with how long it took, how expensive it was, and the lack of speed of innovation within industry, they actually set up the Planet with this mission to image the entire landmass every day. And they did that through very small satellites. Do we have any slides that are going to go or not? Are they somewhere? No? Okay, I'm just going to have to talk to it instead then. The satellites are about this big. It wasn't easy getting there, and there's a lot of challenges in actually manufacturing, building them, getting up into space. There's a lot of very, very serious barriers that they had to overcome in doing this. A lot of people didn't think that they would be able to. But the rapid iteration allows for failure to happen. So not all of the satellites work. Some of them fail, and that's okay because you're able to rapidly innovate and put these satellites up, and if they don't work, you replenish them. And space is difficult. We lost a rocket last year with 6 satellites on, and that's expensive. But if that was just one satellite that had spent 7 years being developed and 3 years being built, that would have been, potentially a life-changing event for our company. So why did Robbie and Will and the others found the company? And it was really not just to prove that they could overcome these technical obstacles, but it's because they really believed by creating greater transparency and making information available about change happening and making that change visible, actionable, accessible and actionable, it meant that people in the world could take more responsibility and make better decisions about the resources on this planet and take better care of them. And we do a lot of work within sustainability. So I joined Planet a couple of years ago, and I was really taken in by the amazing commercial potential of the organization, but also the fact that that doesn't come at the expense of creating a better world. Actually, the more successful we are as a company, the more positive impact that we can deliver through our customers, making better decisions about how we manage the resources on the planet. So I'll talk a little bit about what some of the use cases are, in case they're not obvious. But we have actually 2 constellations. So we have a monitoring constellation, which is imaging like a land scanner, traveling across the Earth in a sun-synchronous orbit about 10:30 each morning, imaging the entire world on a daily basis. That's about a 3 to 4 meter pixel, so quite significant, quite small in comparison to Landsat and Sentinel, but you can't see a car, but you can see a building or a plane or a ship or a tree, which was one of the kind of conical use cases behind setting up Planet. But some of the industries that we support, obviously government, both civil and defense, but also agriculture, forestry, energy, finance, insurance, all of these industries are looking to make better decisions about what's happening in the world. And our data set is incredibly valuable in being able to do that. And in addition to the monitoring capability, we then have a very high resolution tasking system, which offers a rapid revisit. So within the day, you could have between 4 and up to potentially 10 revisits within the day, capturing at 50 centimeters, so the pixel size is about this big. So you can, at that point, start to see things like a car. We have some slides and a beautiful image of Madrid there in the background. So these are just going to run. Now, at the end of the session, if you are interested to learn more about Planet, then we actually have our global customer conference taking place next week on the 12th and 13th. And it's a free event, and you can register. And there's some amazing speakers like Mark Benioff from Salesforce and Sarah Butica from Bayer going to be talking about their vision and how they're using and working with Planet today. So what about sustainability? What is our role there? Well, that was one of kind of the driving forces of setting up Planet, was to really to make sure that we could help provide our data to help people take better care of the planet. And there's a number of really, really interesting use cases that continue to develop. I was actually talking to my colleague Andres earlier about a startup company in Spain that's been collaborating with the state of California around creating a very, very detailed, high-resolution map of the whole state of California for fire protection and emergency response, to help understand and model where fires are going to happen and how you can then take measures to prevent, but also then to can respond very quickly in an emergency situation. And that's just a really good example of that sort of collaboration that we see in sustainability with startups. The other one is forestry, which is obviously it's very sad to see the depletion of the world's forests globally. And last year we actually created a partnership with the Norwegian government and the Norwegian NICFI, Norway's International Climate and Forest Initiative. And that's focused on the Norwegian government funded our data for all of the world's tropical countries that have rainforests. So they're now getting monthly base maps that they can actually see the change to these forests happening over time. And that's allowing them to take actions and go and try and prevent the deforestation rather than just reviewing it later. If you get this data in near real time, you're better able to make decisions much, much faster. One of the other projects that the late Paul Allen, one of the founders of Microsoft, through his organization, we have been working on something called the Allen Coral Atlas, which is a complete global map of all of the coral reefs around the world in very high resolution detail. And from that work, there's been a number of marine protected habitats that have been set up to support protecting and looking after these reefs in places like Sri Lanka and Fiji. And that's incredibly important work. And if people are aware of what's happening in the world, they care, and they're able to actually, take actions to do something with that. So I also want to talk about, startups. So Planet, in our journey, we were a startup. We were founded back in 2011. We're just in the process now of actually going public through a SPAC, which is hopefully going to happen between now and the end of the year. And that's a really exciting time for us. We've made it to this point, and then having public money is going to help us accelerate on delivery of the mission and take that even further. So we're excited about that point. But we also work very extensively with startups. And our data is really the fuel that drives a lot of their businesses. Because a lot of people, when they think about the space industry, they think about the hardware, they think about rockets, and they think about SpaceX. And there's been incredible innovation through particularly SpaceX, which is a big partner of Planet's, in enabling us to get satellites up to space much more cheaply and more regularly. But actually, where we see a huge amount of innovation potential, and particularly in Europe, is within the downstream applications. So the data set is so large that it's impossible to actually look through it manually. What we require is organizations that can bring their expertise around industry, machine learning, analytics, and then derive insights from that data to be able to help people answer the questions that they have, so that they're not looking at pictures, that they're actually getting reports and analysis directly from the data. And there's some really, really interesting companies that we're working with, and particularly across Europe. And the other area is education and research. So there's huge amount of education and research now, which is being powered by Planet's data set. And we do a lot with NASA, as well as a lot of universities in Europe and across the globe. And less than every 24 hours, there is a new paper written that's citing Planet's data set. And that, in its turn, is obviously furthering the human understanding, but it's also then spawning new companies with new ideas to actually, go out into industry and try and be successful and actually, provide these insights to other companies. So we see this green wave happening right now in the world through things like COP, the Climate Change Conference, which is taking place next month in the UK. Obviously, the Paris Accord, this is the next conference since then, which was delayed a year. But also through industry, organizations looking to take much more responsibility for the natural resources of the world. And that's where we see a huge potential within the finance, insurance, ratings agencies in being able to track what's happening. There's a lot of carbon offsetting. A lot of companies now are producing statements about, their the commitments that they're making to support getting to being carbon neutral. But there isn't actually a reliable way of measuring or managing those commitments today. There's no consistency there. And that's where Planet really has a really critical role to play, because we provide that consistent measurement through time so that you can see. So if people are committing to sustainable supply chains, you can see where they're sourcing from to make sure that they are making those commitments, that they're not sourcing from biodiverse or restricted areas. So just on the screen here, this is actually some of the satellites. So these are the SuperDoves. They're only about this long, capture a swath width about 35 kilometers wide, and traveling across the Earth in this sun-synchronous orbit. So very, very small. And just when I was talking earlier about the rapid innovation, iteration, this agile aerospace, this is now, I think, the 14th build of the SuperDove. So we're constantly, every time we're launching new satellites, we're replenishing that fleet. Now, one of the questions we do get is, well, what about space debris? Are you actually contributing to the problem here? But these satellites, they actually fly at a pretty low orbit, and they're very, very small. So actually what happens is we plan for them to be up in orbit for about 3 years, and after that time, they just deorbit and they come down and they burn up on re-entry. So it's something that our leadership team is very, very conscious of, and we don't want to contribute towards that problem, and we're just very responsible in the way that we manage our own capabilities to make sure that that's a non-issue. So I'm just looking at the time. I am going to be speaking again tomorrow, but I just want to again reference the Global Connection event, Explore, which is taking place next week. And if you are interested, then it's explore21.planet.com, and please feel free. And there's just amazing speakers there that will do a much better job than me talking about about Planet and some of the amazing things they're doing with our capabilities. So with that, I will close, and happy to take any questions if there's time.
Well, that was an absolute pleasure. Please, big round of applause to Charlie. Sorry for the sound effects. We have like a huge band right here in the corner, and they're starting their semi-show. I was thinking, you were mentioning before, like, yeah, I don't have the hardest job in the company. You have rocket scientists. And I was thinking, no, you have the hardest job in the company. You're chief revenue officer. Now it's easy to talk about this stuff, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't that rosy when you guys started. Like getting this off the ground and making money, getting clients, that's a different story.
It's been tricky, but honestly, it's inspiring to work alongside the founders and some of the people in the company and see what they've done. They were so visionary and doing things for really the right reasons, and that was what drew me to Planet. Was my mind started racing when I saw the possibilities. I think we're still nowhere near where we could be in terms of the commercial applications. A lot of these things are still so nascent, and that's why we need kind of the startup community to come and to innovate and to build applications on top of the data, because that's what people want. They want insights to be able to take actions. They don't want just huge data sets.
Actually, speaking of data and data being used, I was just mentioning this before, that I believe that some of the footage that we've seen of the La Palma volcano has come from Planet. So there's very important applications for
absolutely
emergency response.
Even if you've not heard of Planet, you've seen our imagery because it's used in the press regularly. Is there a question there? Oh.
They're killing me. I know. Sorry about this. Yes, you're going to kill me afterwards. I know.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, just a very quick one. Would you mind explaining again how your collaboration with academic institutions work? Is the data made available for free, or do you reach agreements? Do you sell the data?
So at very, very low cost. So it's not sort of a profitable, like it's not there to make money from education. We provide a huge amount of data, but there's still quite high cost to Planet in providing it. So we basically create these packages for education and research that makes it very, very affordable for students and researchers and organizations to get hold of it. It's not an area that we're driving big commercial revenues.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, well, with this, we're going to close. Charlie, once again, it was a pleasure having you. Conrad, also, big pleasure having you. Big applause for both of them. Thank you so much, and see you tomorrow then.